seen my last video, I just recorded it just now. This game is good. Persona 5, pick it up. We're going to find back where I put it. I have a really meager collection, by the way. I'm not the best gamer. In fact, I always use walkthroughs, which will outrage some gamers. But you know what? I think it's like having a companion with you. And I had a cat once, and that was a great companion. I'd like to talk to you about my favorite game. It's not this game. It's not Xenogears. I'd like to talk to you about my favorite game ever. It's got so much charm. So much delicious charm. And it's not this game, Pokemon. Hey, where is it? Did I lose my favorite game? Neither is it this game, but we're going to talk about it anyways. Final Fantasy VIII. Does this need an introduction? Of course it has. Have you played this game? Not everyone has. So we're going to introduce it. A field full of flowery feathers. That's all I'm going to say. Starts out like that. They're going to fight each other. There's Squall Leonhardt. And there's some other guy. And they're fighting. And there's people that are Asian. And they're doing things, exaggerated gestures with their hands. And they're looking at each other and they're not looking at people. And people are asking questions and wondering, where is this going? Huh? Ben, what are you doing with this video? What are you doing with your life? Where do you work? What kind of girls do you date? And I say this game, I would like to date Renoa because she has stolen Squall's heart and I want to make him jealous. What this game is really about, if you played a Final Fantasy, it's not about grinding. Grinding in a JRPG term, to be serious, means you fight around in a little area for a while near a save point, like a dungeon or something. Not really a dungeon, you don't go to prison or anything. And you get experience. Not experience as in, I feel very wise and experienced from having just listened to that lesson. No. This is a lesson in life, this game, people. Children. If you're watching this, children, you're too young. This is a mature game by a good friend of, who I hope would be a good friend of mine, Yosunori Katoshi. If I said your name wrong, please don't hate me. You're Japanese and I'm American. It's hard to say your name. For me, if it was like Kevin Bacon, I could say your name all the time. Kevin Bacon. Yosunori Katoshi. Isn't that hard to say? I'll read the back. Don't read the back or we'll sue you. Oh. I'll put that down. The 3 greatest things about Final Fantasy VIII, other than the fact that when you play it, people get angry because they're saying, this isn't Final Fantasy VII 2. If you've heard of Final Fantasy VII, if you haven't heard of it, you're either too young to know about it or you're too old that you just don't care. Final Fantasy VII is, in my opinion, though not my favorite game ever, I think, pound for pound, best game ever. I'll tell you why. Edit the burp out. Good music, good characters, good dialogue, good story that gets convoluted and hard to understand at points, and my friend had to explain it to me. I like to call it so complex a story, we can't figure it out. Or so complex a story, I couldn't think of a title. So that's why they just called it 7. Because Final Fantasy, I can't figure it out, would be hard to accept for a person that wants to get into the game. And just when you're getting the game, you feel this atmosphere. See, when you go in Final Fantasy VIII, you feel a similar atmosphere, but it's different. In this game, you are Squall Leonhardt. In the other game, you're Cloud. Strife. If I didn't get that, people would hate me more than they do now. That I got Squall's name first should anger you. I like this game about a third as much as Final Fantasy VII, which, if you do the math, Final Fantasy VII, I would consider 3 times better. Some people would say 10. I tell them, hey, you want to go to KFC? That's a great place to eat. The battle system in this is pretty sweet. It's not exactly traditional because it's not turn-based. What I mean by that is it is turn-based, isn't it? Okay, here's how it goes. When you're playing Final Fantasy, let's say I'm Cloud Strife. I'm doing this all the time. Don't imagine anything wrong. What? When it's my turn to strike, the little bar on the bottom will go up to the part and say, it's time to go. And then you say, okay. So you just click on the little thing. It sounds boring, but once you get into it, you're like, what? And you haven't played it on anything but a shooter. You're like, what type of game is this? This is different. You get used to it and you realize this is strategy. I gotta pick with this guy first, then I gotta be Zell. Know-it-all, Zell. Not really a know-it-all, he's kind of a chicken wuss. You'll get that if you play the game. Maybe I'm Swell. Maybe I'm Zidane. Anyways, you pick the character, you decide what they do. You only have so much time to do it because it's called active time battle. That means the little gauge is going up on the bottom of the screen, shows all your characters. There's up to 3 in Final Fantasy VIII. In 9, there's 4, therefore it's superior. In Final Fantasy VIII, you decide who to fight, what move to do. You could draw, not like that. You draw the magic out of them. That's what I think is unique about this system. A lot of people complain about it. They say, do I have to keep drawing every single magic out of every single character all the time? Well, you don't have to do that. What you should do is when you're playing this game, you draw once a battle. It's okay. Because you'll eventually get, if you keep playing through the game, you don't have to stop the grind every moment. There's also this fun game called, it's a card game. That's what it's called. It's called the card game. It's great. It's inside the game. It's a game inside the game. You know there's called mini games in games like these. The graphics, you got to get used to these graphics because they're a little pixely. But if you go to the new version of the game, you realize it wasn't bad. The new one's smoother, but the old one has this pre-rendered background. That means that they are pre-made before very beautifully. Like you could see that a lot of artistic design went into these pre-rendered backgrounds, and they're beautiful. The characters are really big for Final Fantasy characters in the game. When we have little sprites back in the day. I remember Final Fantasy I, okay? That's the first one I played. I loved that game. I didn't beat it until I was older. In fact, I went on this quest when I was in high school. I bought all the Final Fantasies except for Final Fantasy III. That's not 6. 6 is actually the one right before 7. I did the math. No, did I insult you guys? I'm sorry. 3 is a different game than 6. You see, the way that Final Fantasy went around is Final Fantasy 1 was the real first one. Yes, Final Fantasy. They didn't call it Final Fantasy 1. They just called it Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 2, I don't believe was a very good game. I played it and I beat it. You have to use your moves just to buff up. Final Fantasy 3 came out. No one wanted to play it. They had Onion Knights, though. Think about that. Onion Knights. That's a cool concept. What should we make? Potato Knights? No. Tomato Knights? It rhymes. Onion Knights. I know. I got a great idea. Onion Knights. The graphics are good. Buy the game because I said so. That's why. Okay? How am I going to wrap up this review? That's a good question. Mostly because I believe most questions are good. Unless you ask someone a question that's bad or considered bad, then don't say it. How do I wrap up this game? It's like a Final Fantasy. It's different because of the junction system, obviously. You draw it, you don't draw in any other game. Not drawing as in writing on things, scribbling or sketching. But you draw out the magic of someone else. You use it for the junction. You have these GFs, Guardian Forces. It has some of the best summons. When you summon some creature to fight for you, like Ifrit or Shiva or Quetzalcoatl, that's a weird word to say. There's a T and then an L at the very end. Should anyone play this game? Why'd you ask me that question? I think yes. Why? Because it's hard to understand the game when you're playing it. You get confused. That's why you should play this game. No, it's got a great battle system. Music, if you listen to it, almost as good as other Final Fantasies that are better. In fact, it's one of the best. And it's actually my third favorite in the series. People hate me for that. Once they say, what about Final Fantasy X? Well, that's a line that you walk on the whole time. Running like this. And eventually they kiss. It's the first kiss scene in a Final Fantasy, so watch out for that. What about Final Fantasy VI? I played that so many times, and you know what? It's great, and I have a map of it in my mind that actually makes sense, not like this video. But honestly, it has less fantasy in it than a Final Fantasy would have, you think. Even though it came before 8, 8 was more out of this world, I'd say. People are going to hate me for saying that, and if you do, I do not respect your opinion at all. Change it. Change your opinion. Change your mind. Go into Persona 5, become a phantom thief, change my heart by stealing my treasure. You'll understand that if you play the game. Spoiler alert, they're all from the same orphanage. That's a terrible twist in the game. They all remember that they had forgotten. Because of the GFs, they see, in this game, there's a thing called Guardian Forces. When you're using the Guardian Forces, you get to do this thing called Junction, which you junction the magics you draw from the battle, and you use them to boost your stats. Now that's the one thing from this video you can take away that annoys people, because they don't understand the Junction, because they don't want to go through the tutorial. And if they do understand the Junction, they're still complaining that it's not like a regular Final Fantasy. In fact, I'd say Final Fantasy VIII is one of the weirder ones. It doesn't look weird. Look at the main character. He looks regular. He doesn't have hooves, for example. He's very emotional. You can tell how emotional he is. He's looking this way. I think he's trying to look away from me right now. I insulted his mother by calling her a trout. That means fish. I called her a fish. This guy right here, he doesn't see what's going on either. He's kind of watching the fireworks. And somehow these two are in two places at once. Either that or it's a poster back there behind them of themselves and their mother. They don't know it. She's really sexy, but she was like a mom to them. So they're looking away. They don't know where they're looking at. Why should you buy this game? Because it's a Final freaking Fantasy, man. It's the 8th one to come out. Every new one should be better. That means it's better than Final Fantasy VII. That means, whoa, Final Fantasy X is twice as good as this game. So what does that make Final Fantasy 13? 26. I did the math. Final Fantasy 26 is the best Final Fantasy, which is 42 if you do the math there. That's wrong math. That's right math. I just did it in my head. I hope you love this video, because this game should be on your must-play list. Shouldn't be overlooked. A lot of people underrate it. They say, what about that twist when they were all kids at an orphanage? We're all born here. We're all born here. You're all born here, you know? But it has a cowboy who's a sniper, and I think that's pretty cool. And has a little girl in yellow who uses, I forget what they're called because I'm very forgetful. Nunchucks! That's what it's called. And then you got this guy who uses a gun blade. How cool is that? You have a gun. You don't even use it to shoot things. You pull the trigger when you're hitting someone. It explodes on contact and gives you more damage. Only works for that character, and that's the character used for the game, Squall. And he's a very boring character at first. Then you realize you start to like him if you're a certain type of person. If you're not a certain type of person, you're going to hate this game, because it gets kind of emotional. But sometimes, I mean, it's really funny. I'd say Final Fantasy X is more emotional. I'll dare to say that. Final Fantasy X, it's very emotional, and not like that's always a bad thing, because it got great music and the characters are so-so. But in this game, there's more humor. Like the minor characters. That's what I like about Final Fantasy games before 10, pre-10. They had minor characters that were just funny. You wanted to walk around the town, you want to talk to everybody, because they had something funny to say. You'd have to play it to see that. Like a little kid standing up on the wall. I mean, he's standing up on his, letting the blood rush to his head in Final Fantasy VIII. And you come up to him and you try to talk to him, and he says, that'll help you if you pay him money? I forget. That's not a good example. I'd give Final Fantasy VIII an 8.6 plus 1.2 minus 3 degrees Fahrenheit because it's hot and spicy. That's out of 15, so that's a pretty low score. I'm kidding! Ow, why did I do that? That hurts. That stings.